I want my kids, especially, if they're home with me, I want them to build character. Character is just such a beautiful thing. Character is what gets you that job. Character is what makes people come and want to learn more from you and want to be around you and hang out with you. It's character that is the most important, I think, the most important thing to teach.
Hey, welcome to RCAM. I'm your host, Ryan, and thank you for tuning in today. So today on our show, I have a very special guest. Her name is Courtney, and we're going to be talking about homeschooling. How are you doing today, Courtney?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Awesome. So I know that you've been homeschooling for a long time, and this is a conversation that I've really been excited to have because you have so much knowledge. And I think a lot of your experience is going to be beneficial for those watching or listening to hear. So I just wanted to have a conversation about that. But first, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so like I said, my name's Courtney, and well, like Ryan said, my name's Courtney, and I have 4 kids, 10, 7, 5, and 1. I started homeschooling my oldest when she was only 2 years old, and wow, I don't think that's a good idea to sit down with books with a 2-year-old now, but yeah, so I've been doing this quite a while, 8 years now, and I'm a second generational homeschooler. So in other words, I was homeschooled as well.
Wow.
Mhm.
You know, obviously my wife is homeschooled, and she was actually probably one of the first homeschooled kids I had ever met. And for me, it was kind of amazing because she was like this perfectly preserved gem in
Oh,
Sullivan County that nobody knew about.
oh,
And I got the chance to meet her, but she was definitely not like we have these stereotypes of homeschool kids, and she definitely didn't fit the mold.
mm,
So so being that you were homeschooled, do you think that played a role in your decision to start homeschooling?
absolutely. I do know that every time I would take a state test and whatnot, I would take it in the public school system, but I would score so much higher. I mean, grade levels higher than what I was supposed to be taking the test for or scoring at. And then when I go to regular school, because I wasn't homeschooled the whole time, it was like half. It was like 6 years and 6 years, and so, but it was kind of split up. Every time I was in school, I barely passed. I was having a hard time. I was probably pretty distracted by everyone and everything else that was going on. And so, being homeschooled, I loved the time that I got to spend with my own family and developing those relationships with my siblings, my parents. And yeah, I think it built some character in me too. I finally um, found out who I was, I feel like, especially in high school, because I was in school for ninth grade and that got pretty confusing. And then I was homeschooled in 10th grade. And in 10th grade, I felt like I discovered myself and I knew who I
Hmm.
was. And then went back into school like halfway through 11th grade. And nobody could keep me down. I didn't feel the pressures of anything anymore. And I just felt like this is who I am. And I don't care if somebody wants to accept me, if people do or don't. It doesn't matter.
Hmm. That's pretty interesting too, because I think part of what shapes us is the environment that we're around. Don't
Hmm.
worry about that. So it's the environment that we're around.
Hmm.
So I think like a lot of the kids, especially in the public schools, I mean, think about it. The core of who you are is being shaped in the public school system. So you're spending majority of your time, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week in the public school system.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that can definitely influence you for better or for worse. And I
Yeah.
think it's probably more conducive for like I think the overall development and maturity of
Yeah.
somebody to be raised by raised by their parents and that spending that amount of time actually being directly influenced by their parents rather than the public school system.
Absolutely. And that's just the thing is like when you're homeschooled, you're not just with a bunch of kids that are all the same age with all the same immaturities. You are with other kids, especially in co-ops and with your own siblings, your cousins, whoever else is homeschooled. And you're around so many different age groups that it really causes you and forces you to become more mature. Like the one co-op that we attend, there's kids, I mean, from newborn all the way up to like 11th grade. And the interaction is amazing. Like this little 5-year-old boy comes over and he wants to hold my 1-year-old baby. And he's just being so nurturing and everything. It's just like, it's amazing to see this and how gentle he was with my child. And it's just awesome. The maturity, I really feel like you're more, what's the word? You adapt better, I think, personally, because you're around so many different ages, all different types of people, all walks of life, you know. So yeah.
So my audience may not be familiar with what a co-op is.
Mhm.
I had not really heard this term until probably about 2 years ago. So I knew what homeschooling was, but when people mentioned co-op, I'm like, what is that? Can you explain what a co-op is?
Sure. So there's all different types. Oh my goodness. Co-op just means cooperative basically. And it can get as intense as you want it to be, or as, you know, as sophisticated, whatever. Some co-ops, we're part of 3 or 4. Yeah. So I run one out of my house. You're actually like in the room right now, as you can
Oh,
see.
that's cool.
There's some flags over there. But we have about 15 kids that come here, and it's we used to do weekly, but now we do monthly because there's just too many things going on. Homeschoolers are so busy. I'll tell you what, so busy. And so we'll just meet up and we just have a good time. Like this past year, we all had babies at the same time, so it was like, let's just get together and let's just relax and enjoy our time together. That social outlet, the kids can run around, do, you know, it's just our hands were full. But the other co-op that we go to is more organized. So there's a group of kids and all different ages, and you can go and do science here one day and art over there, and different moms, you know, with different what's the word? What's the word?
Specialties?
I guess specialties, or even whatever they're good at. You know, maybe we have someone who was an art major or someone who really enjoyed science. Maybe somebody's bilingual, you know, and then they can we take turns teaching each other's kids. So
That's pretty cool. And that must build like a pretty strong sense of community too, because these are parents from your community gathering together with their kids to teach them and educate them. Um,
absolutely.
and
It's
I
like a
think that's some,
sisterhood, at least from
yeah,
my point of view. Us moms, it is like a sisterhood. It's we have such a connection. I can't even explain to you. Like for instance, as soon as well, I don't know if we want to go. I was gonna say COVID and like everything that happened. We like just came together. We're like, we need to provide for each other. We need to help each other out. Who needs babysitting? Who needs this? Who needs that? It was awesome, and it is.
that's that's pretty awesome because that also, I mean, so one of the things that, what I think with COVID, we've actually seen one of the problems with the public education or the school system as we have it. Now, I'm not saying it's completely broken, but I'm saying we did see a major
Mm,
flaw in that once COVID hit, that totally rocked people's worlds.
mm,
Whereas people who have been homeschooling, they're just connecting with other communities. They don't have to go through any of the red tape
yeah.
with Big Brother, and they're able to kind of navigate and
Yes.
kind of share that load with each other.
Mhm. And that's the thing too, is like we have such a tight bond that we really know each other, and like we would never want to put each other at risk. Like even if somebody has a cold or whatever, you know, everyone's gonna know, we're going to announce it. And so like not much change in the homeschool community because we could still it was our still core group, and like whoever was comfortable getting together, that's what we did, you know. And it was such an amazing support system. It still is. And like as the world and all the kids are just, everything's chaotic, it's like we were able to not just live in our bubble. I don't want to say that because it's always like a negative connotation with homeschooling, but like we were able to just, I feel like, thrive in that, you know. So
Yeah. So I want to hit you with a little bit more questions about homeschooling versus public school. But first, I want to know what is a day to day look like homeschooling your kids?
that can look different every day and depending on who's home and who's teaching and what kind of kids you have. But a perfect homeschool day for me is we wake up slow. And I try to do this at least once to twice a week. We wake up slow, nothing on the calendar, nothing on the agenda for the day. And I come downstairs, I open all the windows. My kids are reading or playing something nicely together. And I go and I make homemade pancakes. And that's just the thing that we do. And then I quickly go outside and do the animals. And then I come back in. We all eat together. And as we're eating, I pull out my big stack of library books. And whatever we're studying, I try to find picture books that coincide with the topic that we're studying. And listen, picture books are not just for babies. Let me tell you, there are some really serious picture books out there that are written through like a child's point of view, but very serious and sometimes dark and hard, but good. And I want to put this term out there that you probably never heard of, but they're called living books.
Huh. No,
And
I have
so-
never heard of that.
Yeah. So I try to focus on living books. A living book is basically, you think of your standard textbook, and how interesting is it to learn something in history that was in a textbook? Let's say, for instance, like Sacagawea. You probably know who Sacagawea is, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Vaguely, though, you might have to
Right.
refresh
A
my
little
memory.
bit.
It's been a
Right.
long time since I sat in a history class.
That's okay. No, that's okay. So, do you remember the expedition that she was on? Probably.
Yes.
Okay. So it was the Lewis and Clark expedition, right? Okay. So that's just a fact, something that we just threw away in our mind, back in school. Okay. Who cares? Like, who cares? That's how I was when I went to a regular school. I don't care about these things. Like, what does this have to do with me? You know what I'm saying? And in history, I hated history until I started homeschooling. And now it is my very favorite topic. It's my favorite subject. I can't get enough. So a living book is basically full of life. So what if I told you that Sacagawea, a Native American, she grew up in Idaho, okay? And she was captured and taken at 12 years old. I'm sure you can think of one or two kids about that age. That's pretty traumatic to be taken away from your family. Next, 15, 16 years old, she had a baby, okay? And then 2 months after having this child, they asked her to go on this expedition because she knew the mountains. She knew how to get across. She knew the Native Americans there. And so they were on their journey. And if it wasn't for Sacagawea, these men would have starved to death. And we would not have the story that we have, the history that is so rich. I mean, she was digging up things, food for them. They were eating. It was all her. And the craziest part of the story, in my opinion, is she's my hero because they were on a boat and they had all their information that they were documenting for the Lewis and Clark expedition. They documented all the paperwork, the geography that they were mapping out, everything was in this boat. Anyway, something had happened and the boat rocked and everything fell out of the boat. Sacagawea, okay, imagine this. All the men are freaking out. They're screaming. What's going to happen? Everything just flew out of the boat. What are we going to do? They're all freaking out. It's freezing cold temperatures. What does Sacagawea do? She not only jumps into the water to save all of the paperwork and all the documentation, but she literally had her 2-month-old baby strapped to her back doing it. And she literally saved the day. Now that is so much more interesting, isn't it, than just Lewis and Clark expedition. Here's the date. Let's move on to the next topic.
Yeah, that is interesting because I was totally engrossed the entire time.
There's so many more details. There's so much more history, but
and I probably won't forget it like I forgot.
Yep.
I forgot
Exactly.
it being taught
That's
in history class.
exactly what homeschooling is all about. And if you're not enjoying homeschooling, you're doing something wrong. You have to find, and it's different for everyone. It's not going to be the same. It's different for everyone, but oh my goodness, it is so enjoyable. And that's the thing is we get to take the time to dig deeper and deeper into the concepts, the topics, whatever. And what's really interesting is Sacagawea, she died around 25 years old. She died pretty young. And guess who? She has 2 children at that point, a boy and a girl, I think. Guess who becomes the legal guardian of those 2 children? You think it's her husband? It's not. It's Clark from Lewis and Clark.
That's
what?
awesome.
Now it's like, all right,
Plot
Clark,
twist.
what's going on? Like, what was that like? What do you two do? Like, what's happening here? So it's just fun.
Yeah,
You just keep digging in, diving in. It's just like you can go so deep with this stuff. It's incredible. Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
So what would like a what would or not extracurricular, but what would like gym look like in a homeschool
Oh,
environment?
well, I have a trampoline outside. Um, I installed swings. Actually, do you see the hook right there? There's some hooks. I
Okay,
don't know if you see them, but I hook
I
swings
see
down
them.
here. I have, because I run this co-op, at my house, which is really relaxed. Um, I also installed a slide, going up my stairs so that they can just go through like this cubby hole, which is a closet, and they just keep going in circles and circles. Um,
Wow, your
yeah,
house sounds like a
that's
playground.
it is. It is. As much as my imagination can run with it. But yeah, it also helped because like one of my kids is very ADD, and so it just helps. Like if she's just overstimulated or overwhelmed, or she's just not absorbing the information, I find that if they can swing or if they can move or be on like some kind of ball to bounce on and do their work, like can you imagine doing that in school? They would never allow that. And
No, and I think that's probably why we're having huge issues, particularly with boys in
yes,
public schools being slapped with ADD diagnosis, getting
yeah,
shoved with pills down their throat and
yeah.
being told there's something wrong with them, but maybe
Yeah,
there isn't something wrong with them.
there is
Maybe
nothing wrong with them.
yeah.
I mean, there's different extremes, there's different, but no, boys will be. Well, I don't like to say that, but boys will be boys. But they do usually tend to have more energy, and they need
Yeah.
to move. And when we were homeschooled, my little brother, he had so much energy. My mom was genius in that every 15 minutes that he did school, she'd be like, "All right, Jimmy, go outside, go jump on the trampoline." And so he'd jump out everything that he had to jump. It was in the middle of winter, summer, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then he'd come back in, do another 15 minutes. All right, go back out every 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's definitely more conducive for especially boys, but also like you said, your daughter
Yeah.
is hyper, to get that
Mm-hmm.
energy out, get
Mm-hmm.
them focused, so they're not just sitting in a chair for
Yeah.
8 hours a day. Man,
Yeah.
I don't even like doing that. I'm an adult,
No,
so like I
exactly.
sit in an office,
Yep.
I get up, I'm moving around, I'm
That's right.
doing something. I cannot sit
It's
down for 8 hours a
yeah.
day.
And same with our focus and like the topics that we're on. If I find that I am getting bored with whatever topic we're studying, if I'm bored, I sure as heck know that my kids must be bored out of their minds. So it's time to switch it up. And that's what we do. So we switch it up. So I always have like a backup plan. I love curriculum. I'm obsessed. I have a problem. That's all I watch on YouTube, just for
Hmm.
reviews and seeing inside of each of the books. But yeah. So then I just switch it up. So it's fun. I
That's
love it.
awesome. So what about for like field trips? What do you guys do? Do you get with like the co-op and go
Oh,
like go do
oh,
something?
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Oh, and just to put this on the last question because I feel like I didn't answer it completely. With Jim, we also ran like a basketball group for a while
Okay.
there, and all the dads ran it. It was really awesome to have all the dads in there, and us moms were like, "Oh, finally we get a little break." But
Hmm.
what was your second question? I forgot what you said.
So I was
Oh,
wondering,
field trips.
yes.
Field trips. Oh yeah, we take plenty of field trips. We just came back from one yesterday. We went to the land of make believe. It was a great time, and somebody just organizes it. Just whoever just feels like I wanted to check this place out once and I never got to. Why not go all together? It's simple. It's
That's
it's pretty
cool.
basic.
Hmm. So I wanna ask, I guess, kind of moving on because we touched a little bit about like homeschooling and a little bit about public school. So what do you think are some of the benefits to
Mm.
homeschooling over sending kids to the public school system?
Oh my goodness, so many, so many. So I once listened to a speaker at a convention, a homeschool convention, who said that she worked in the school system for over 15 years. I want to think it was 25, but just to be sure, I'm not 100% positive. So let's say 15 years. She said she worked in the school system with high schoolers. She said if all you ever do is sit home and just hang out the whole day, your kids will be far better off Don't ever, not even opening a book. Your kids will have more character. They will be more well-rounded. They will just be so much better off at home because of what she has seen and going on
Wow.
in the high school. So yeah, I know. So that's always stuck with me. But for me, I wanted to give my kids an education that it was mostly about learning, like the love of learning, not just you have to retain this information and it's in your short-term memory and then it just goes out the door. I wanted them, I'm I'm teaching them to love learning. And I never liked learning growing up. And so I was so excited to see how each of my children learn and how they obtain information. Like my one daughter, she's so musical. Everything is music to her. So there are curriculums out there that teach us through music. Like every
Hmm.
subject. It's incredible.
Wow.
Even math.
So you
Um,
can like custom tailor a curriculum to specifically
yes.
meet your child's needs, as opposed to like a public school system where it's just like one size fits all. That's it,
Yep.
and you don't really have a lot of choice in where you go to school or how or what. Yeah, unless you want to pay exorbitant amounts of money to send your kid to private school.
Mm-hmm. That's
Hmm.
exactly right. Yeah, no, it's awesome. And not only can you fit the curriculum to your family, but like you said, each individual child, you know,
Hmm.
it's fun. I love
That's
trying to figure that out. And who better knows their kids than their parents? Like, who
that's
better
true.
knows them, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, there's some things too with the public school system where it's like it just makes, me personally, like, I'm somebody that, I went to public school. So, like that was my entire experience was
Mm,
public school. I didn't have any concept of homeschooling until after I had graduated. And then any idea that I had in my head of homeschooling were, well, those kids are weird, but why did I think that? Because that's what I was told. I never actually met anybody
oh,
until I
wow.
met my wife, and then I'm like, "Well, she's pretty normal, she's not weird." And then that totally too dispels
Hmm.
like, oh, there are also weird kids in public school. I know a handful of them that had done some really weird things.
Yeah.
But with the way public school is, I personally found it a little bit challenging, and for somebody that like I didn't genuinely have like a love for learning, and I don't think anybody really made that exciting for me,
Mm,
or really cared to kind of foster that in me. Now, don't get me wrong. I had some teachers that definitely broke the mold, and they were great and they were
mm,
phenomenal. But I also had a handful that were
mm-hmm,
not so much. So I think, yeah, my experience in public school has been a little bit negative, if I'm being completely honest.
mm-hmm,
And I'm concerned too with the direction our country is going. That public schools are teaching uh, kids things that I just don't think they have any business teaching. And we'll do something too that I'll hit on a topic that maybe some people might disagree with me at, but like sex education. What we have that in school now. Regardless of our personal feelings about it, I just find it very weird that we entrust teachers with
mm-hmm,
teaching our children about sex education. Like I feel like that's something that would actually be better coming from a
mm-hmm.
parent, because like you said, your kid,
Yeah.
and you also have different values than
Yeah.
maybe what the public school system has. And I think we're seeing conflicts with those, especially with people that maybe are a little bit more conservative. We're seeing a stark contrast in values and what's happening and
Mm-hmm.
being taught in the public school system.
Right. Yeah. And plus, your children have different sensitivity levels too, as far as
Hmm.
how you provide information to them, especially on such a sensitive topic like that.
Yeah.
I just, again, I don't believe that belongs in schools either. And in fact, you're taking that away from their parents, or their guardians. That's such a private thing. And schools for like I understand like it's for education, but for sex ed, I don't understand that. I don't get that at all. you're stepping in as the parent, and that's just not okay with me, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and I completely agree. And there's a number of other things that that we could probably go on a whole separate rabbit trail about with the public school system in general. But it does seem to me like there are definitely some more benefits than there are cons with homeschooling
Mhm.
your kids. But I do want to talk about some of the challenges maybe that you've personally faced with homeschooling, because I'm sure it's not all fun and games. I'm sure there's probably some challenges that that you encounter with homeschooling. Could you
Mm.
talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I was really trying to think what are the challenges of homeschooling, because I'm from fun country and also control country. Those are real things. I'm half and half.
Oh,
Um,
really?
so yeah, you can take a personality test later and figure out what you are. But anyway, yeah. So I, oh man, I just feel like if you're not having fun, when are you really learning? You know, unless you're like enjoying it. It's not always about having fun, but unless you're like enthralled in something or enjoying that, I mean, it doesn't have to come out as happy, exciting. It doesn't have to come out that way. Like the Holocaust has always been like a really big topic for me. And how does a whole group of people just, how could they do that in like to humanity? I couldn't understand it. um I feel like now I'm starting to, unfortunately, in this crazy world. But the
Yeah.
challenges, um my biggest challenge, number one, is I lose track of what day it is. Sounds so stupid, but it's true. Like we're home, like we're not home all the time, but unless we have something on the schedule to go and do, I it's easy to lose track of what day it is. But besides that, oh, go ahead.
So do you like say like, all right, so like Monday through Friday I'm homeschooling and then the weekend we're not doing anything, or it's just
Oh no.
today we're homeschooling and we're just
Right, right. It's hard because there's so many amazing things that go on in the homeschool
mm,
community that it's like we have to say no to some things so that we can at least get some book work done. Okay, because we do
okay.
have to hand in something to show that you are actually learning. Okay. But what was a real see, I like challenges. So it wasn't so much of a hard challenge. I mean, it was difficult, but like growing up, I always knew my sister, she was dyslexic, hands down. And I don't mean like was, but still is, like was is.
Okay.
Okay. And she was definitely dyslexic. And I just watched her struggle like our entire upbringing. And she was so intelligent, and it was just so hard for her. And so as soon as I started homeschooling my oldest daughter, when she was starting to try and read and sound out her letters and everything, I knew she was dyslexic. Hands down, I knew it. It was just like a red flag. And so I was like, you know what? I know there is a way to teach this. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to find out. So I
Mm,
took out every book from the library. I watched every YouTube video. I researched dyslexia. And let me tell you, it is a superpower. It is the most incredible way of
mm,
thinking. It's not even a disability like people would say. I would love to teach that someday. It is, it's a completely different way of thinking. Like the opposite side of your brain is what is alerted first, and it's usually the
mm,
creative side. These are the most intelligent people you wouldn't
mm,
believe. And like, just because we teach all the same way in the school system, unfortunately. And a lot of teachers don't, I mean, maybe some, unless they specifically went down that path and researched it and dug up more information, they don't know how to teach dyslexia. And the problem is then they're kind of just tossed to the side. And and it's not the teacher's fault, because they have a classroom of what, 25, some 30 kids.
yeah.
How are they supposed to focus all that time on just this one child who gets their P's, their nines, and their D's all mixed up, you know?
Mm,
But it's a superpower. And okay, so I knew she was intelligent, and not to brag or anything, but also to brag. She is in fourth grade, and she just took her state test and scored at 10th grade level.
wow.
I I just wanted her to just pass. But I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. And I'm not saying that this is my doing, because she's incredibly intelligent herself. It's just I fostered and fed her the way she needed to be fed the
So,
information.
so the challenge would be then trying to figure out what works for each kid in every situation. Because I think it'd be easier to say, well, this is the way it is.
Yep.
This is the
Gotta move on.
curriculum.
You
Turn
can't
in
hold
your
up the whole
homework at the end of the
classroom.
week. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't hold up the whole classroom for just one kid.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know from, just talking to a few people, one barrier that parents may have, and I know when my mom was looking into this is what she initially had, is that homeschooling is expensive. So
Mm.
is that true? Is homeschooling an expensive endeavor?
You can homeschool for absolutely free if you wanted to.
Wow.
Absolutely free. The resources out there are insane. Insane. It is overwhelming. I'm not going to lie. Homeschooling is not like it was back when I was homeschooled. There is so much information out there and so many free curriculums. It's insane. And if anyone needs to contact me, I can help you out because it's overwhelming. I'm not going to lie. But I've been doing this a while and it's all I research. I research other things too, but I enjoy it so much that I know a couple of things. I know a couple of good curriculums that we like.
Wow. So
Oh,
so
yeah.
parents can do it for free. That's incredible. I
Yeah.
I actually I actually didn't know that. I thought,
Yeah.
like my mom ended up putting my sister in like a program. I think for the year it was like $1,000, which I'm like, that's actually not that bad.
Yeah.
But for a a single mother that may not have the assistant, or a
Mhm.
single dad, somebody that's struggling to uh make ends meet, that might
Mhm.
be difficult for them. But
Right.
if you can do it for free, that's
You
that's
can.
pretty incredible.
And so I set myself a budget. I told my husband, all right, well, I love curriculum and I want to get what I think was going to work for the kids. So I set a budget of, I took a month of a private school for one child. It's like $500, or at least when I saw it a couple years ago, it was $500 per month for one child. I was like, give me that amount and I'm going to spread it out throughout the whole year for all of our kids. And I think that is more than fair. And so that's what I do. And you wouldn't believe how much you can find at your library. Oh my goodness, the resources are incredible there. All you need is you just look up online, you look up a good book list, whatever you're teaching, whatever topic, there it is. You can find everything you need at the library. It is the best resource, a best friend of homeschooling.
Wow.
Yes.
That's awesome.
But
That's
it can be
really cool.
expensive if you like expensive curriculum. And you're still rolling the dice because you don't know if it's going to work for your kid or not. You could also
Hmm.
invest like in your co-op, everyone pitches in at this really great curriculum and then you take turns or you work together and you teach them all together, you know. There's different ways.
Okay.
But,
That's pretty cool. Now, I know one barrier parents may have is that they don't think they're smart enough or equipped enough to teach their kids. What would you say to those parents?
okay. So what I would say is, first off, who told you that? Um, you think you're not educated enough to teach your own children. And so you send them to the very same institution that didn't educate you enough to educate your children. I love that quote and I'm sticking with it. Did you teach your kids to walk? Did you teach your kids to talk? Did you teach your kids how to bathe themselves, how to wipe themselves? You did that. Who told you that you can't educate your kids? You taught them to feed themselves. Um, you taught them, well, hopefully you teach them to balance a checkbook and maybe change a tire. You know, it's the problem is we don't think we're smart enough to do it. I don't know who told us that, but even though I was homeschooled, going into this, I was thinking I'm not smart enough. My test results showed it. What is a test? Like, why are we all tested the same exact way? What does that show for anything? Just for passing a test and then forgetting all the information, unless you
Hmm.
care about it. And most textbooks, most people don't care about. It's fed to you. This is the information you need to know instead of how do you feel about this information? What do you think about this? Like I told you about Sacagawea. How do you feel? Don't you feel connected to her now? Don't you feel like I want to know more about her? I want to know more about that life and what they went through instead of just the facts. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
so if there's an area, let's say that you're not knowledge about, is that then like an opportunity for you go you start doing some research in the library, or do you tap like maybe another parent to kind of help you out in this area, or
Mm.
bring someone else in?
So I'm only at the fourth grade level right now. And I'll tell you what, there's some like English language stuff that I'm not so sure about. Thank goodness my husband is so good in that area. I'm more of the math person. So a lot of times, if I don't have an answer key, a teacher's guide, I have to ask him, is this correct?
Hmm.
Diagramming these sentences. And if he doesn't know the answer, um, there's amazing Facebook communities out there that can answer all those questions for you. And that's what the beautiful thing of a co-op is people have already done this before and they can answer those questions for you and point you in the right direction of different resources and who they used. And sometimes there, and I'm sure, especially for high school, there's going to be quite at least on my part, a need for uh, other people to step in or someone for me to pay, to do that. I do know there's online resources as well, and you can. Oh, there's so much used curriculum too. I don't even want to say like, oh, it's going to be super expensive. You can find used curriculum out there for high school and be taught right through, a DVD or a live stream. There's so many options, so many.
Hmm. Yeah, I can agree with that. I think too, with the age that we're living in, like not being able to even figure something out is, I would say, like, difficult because we have so much information at our fingertips. We have one in our local libraries, but then we also have everybody in the palm of our hands, like
Yes.
access to like all of mankind's knowledge.
Yep.
And if like like I'm not good at math at all, so me, I'm like, I'm probably not going to be equipped to teach this, but maybe I can find some sort of resource online that might
Mhm.
actually explain it better than I could.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's the best part is you get to learn together. So everything
hmm,
I feel like I missed out on, I get to relearn or learn for the first time, and we get to
hmm,
do it together. It's just finding it and then executing it, you know?
yeah. And I guess one of the last things that I wanted to talk about was, so we hear this a lot, and I actually mentioned a little bit that homeschool kids are socially awkward, and uh, and parents want to send their kids to public school to make sure they're socialized. Um, well, one, are homeschool kids socially awkward?
I think I've thought long and hard about this because it's the first thing everybody says when they find out we're homeschooling. And then I say, do you think I'm awkward? I mean, sometimes I am, but like, do you do you find me awkward? But
Yeah,
I
well,
think,
you definitely break the mold because you're like very, like
um,
I've been interacted with you enough where you're very outgoing and bubbly.
yeah, but I'm
Um,
weird too. But anyway, no, but all I'm saying is that weird parents make weird kids. I'm just saying, okay? So if you're a weird parent, most likely your kids are going to be weird. We can all think of somebody, I'm sure, in high school that was just like so weird, so out there. And you can ask them if they're homeschooled. Most of the time, they weren't. There's just weird people out there, socially
yeah.
awkward, whatever. But that's the biggest thing too. Is I want my kids, especially if they're home with me, I want them to build character. Character is just such a beautiful thing. Character is what gets you that job. Character is what makes people come and want to learn more from you and want to be around you and hang out with you. It's character that is the most important, I think, the most important thing to teach,
Hmm.
especially in homeschooling. Because who else
So,
is going to do that? In public school, who's going to teach you character? Who teaches you that?
I
Hopefully,
don't.
hopefully sometime at home, if there's any time left, at the dinner table, maybe there's a chance there or right before bed. I'm walking with my children daily, so I see their struggles. I see if somebody's picking on them. I get to see it happen. It's not just they're protected in a bubble and they're never going to experience anything. No, like there's still bullies out there. It's not as bad, thank goodness. But I get to see that, and we get to develop from there and talk through it. And how does that make you feel? And I'm so sorry, that must hurt. What should we do about that? Let's pray together. You know,
Mm,
let's talk to this person about it. Who takes their hand at school to say, you know, let's go talk to this person? You know, and it's a hard thing, because you know, a lot of single parents, they have to, what else do they have? They have to send their kids to school, and they do the best they can. And I say to all those parents out there that, you know, are stuck in those situations, that take advantage of your dinner table, eat your meals together, and have those conversations there, because that is what really truly matters. Take that time, you know.
mm.
So
Yeah, definitely. So, so, so part of too, like how would you go about socializing your kids? You know, what are some things that you do because they're not going to the public school system and interacting with kids there? So,
mhm,
you know, co-ops we definitely identified as being one of those things. Is there
mhm.
anything else that you do to kind of socialize your kids, get them around other kids so that they're playing and engaging?
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, besides the co-ops, like I said, we have at least three, and then there's play dates, and then there's like science fairs, and just so many amazing, incredible nature walks. I mean, there's just so much, there's a plethora of things to do. But also, I think the most important thing is also interacting with adults. You know, um, when we order food, we go out to eat, go ahead and order for yourself, you know, or let's go, and you know, they're going to take their allowance money, or whatever, they did some extra chores, they earned some money, you're going to pay the cashier, you're going to make sure it's the right amount. This is school all the time, all the time. You're going to make sure that it came up the price that you saw the sale sign, and if it didn't, you're going to tell them, I saw it was this much, or here it is, the advertisement. You're going to make sure you get the right change, you're going to say thank you. And everything's a lesson. If we're home, we're going to bake together. Like after we're done with the books, we're going to bake together. That's math. You're doing measurements, you're doing science. It just,
Mm,
you're just always learning. And yeah, I think they're just, being around adults is so important, not just kids your age, you know, which is great. It's fun. But it's great to have the variety of different ages um, to mature.
yeah, too, and they're not getting all their social cues from other peers,
Right.
you know, exclusively. They have that adult voice, which should be the voice of reason, kind of guiding them through,
Mhm.
you know, some of the things that are happening in their life, you know, as it happens in real
Mhm.
time. So I think that's pretty cool. That you can actually, you know, get them engaging with adults on that level to kind
Mhm.
of help sharpen some of those soft skills, which is actually something too that Generation Z, I think,
Mhm.
is lacking. They're lacking soft skills, and I think part of that is the result of kids being so entrenched in technology
Mhm.
nonstop. So when they come home, usually they're not spending that quality time with their parents. They're coming home, spending eight hours a day with their peers, then coming home
Mhm.
and then plugging into social media and then being connected with their peers even when they're home. So they can't really get away.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Hmm.
I know. I completely agree. It's crazy out there, you know. But
Hmm.
yeah.
So that's definitely interesting. So I I think we could talk about so much more when it comes to homeschooling, but I want to know what you would say to a mother who's on the fence about homeschooling. So,
Mm.
so this year, a lot of parents, for the very first time,
Mhm.
got their experience homeschooling. Now, I don't think it's probably what your experience has been, but it's definitely an experience. And some parents might have found like, wow, I really like doing this. I'm
Mhm.
home with my kid more often. We get
Mhm.
to spend time together.
Mhm.
They may be seeing, actually their kids becoming, people of better character because they're spending so much time with their parents.
Mhm.
Um, so what would you say to a mother who is on the fence about homeschooling, who's maybe not sure
Mhm.
if she's ready to make that commitment?
Well, first off, with virtual schooling, I'll tell you what, that does not compare at all to homeschooling. I've heard one person say that it was a good experience, and all the others, I heard terrible, terrible experience of just logging in and then having them just sit there and try to do it. Just, it sounded horrible, and I felt so bad. And I don't want people to think that that's what homeschooling is. Not at all. Oh my goodness. I had to talk to so many poor moms that were just stressing about, how do you do this? It's like, we don't do that. We don't do that at all. My kids would just lose it if they had to just sit in front of a screen all day for hours and then switching to the next child. That's just, oh, I felt bad. But anyone can do this. I know of a few single moms that were able to pull it off. They would take turns. So like they'd have grandma watch their kids during the day so that they would work. And then they would come home after work and they would do school together. A lot of single parents have done it. It's hard. But they say it's worth it. You know, it's possible. Anything is possible. It's just, if you put your mind to it, you have the desire to do it. I also think that during COVID, these parents realized then how much time they were losing with their children, because now they're around each other all the time. And, you know, some parents, that drives them nuts. And sure, it drives me nuts sometimes too. You know, I need a break, even if it's just hiding in the bathroom for a couple minutes or hiding in a closet. That doesn't happen often, but I am human, and you do get tired sometimes, you know.
Yeah, I could
But
imagine.
anyone
I
can
mean,
do it.
I have me and my wife, like, she'll work in the evenings, I'll work the days, but when I come home, I'm with my daughter all evening, when
Yeah.
she's with my daughter all day.
Mm.
But there are just some days where I'm like, babe, I need a break. And she's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
babe, I need a break. And we
Yep.
just give each other that time.
And hey,
And
listen,
we make it
also,
work.
yeah, and also, like, if you're literally sitting with your kids 2 to 3 hours every night doing homework, you might as well homeschool, because that's it. Like 2 to 3 hours for the younger years. That's it. You're done. You're done for the day. You know, start at 10. If you concentrate and you get it done, all right, you're done by noon. Let's go have lunch. Let's go play. Let's go bake something.
Yeah, I can imagine too that a lot of people are probably thinking like, oh, these are just like, I gotta teach them 8 hours a day, but you don't have to
Right.
do that.
No, you
Huh.
don't, because think about it. In the public school system, it's like, all right, you're there. What is it, 8 hours or is it 6? Well, either
It's
way, whatever.
probably,
It's 6, 7. Think about all the time that's wasted. Okay, everyone's got to come in to homeroom, and all the time in homeroom, and then the time at the lockers, and then the time in between, and then the time handing out papers for the next test, and the time that you got to write down the homework and the assignments, and all the in between, the lunch, and if you're younger, the snack time. It's just like so much. And then if somebody's goofing off, the whole class has to wait, you know, and it's just, there's a lot of time wasted. Oh, and then the bus ride home. I remember riding the bus for almost 2 hours every day. And it's just so much wasted time. So if you can condense that, and it's one parent for, if you have, you know, one, that's great. But 4, 5, whatever, it's still so much more. It's smaller than the average public school, even the Christian schools, you know, the private schools. It's still smaller, and you can get so much more done so much quicker, so much quicker. And here's the thing too, think about the subject. So math and English language arts, all that your kids are going to be in their own level, unless you have kids that are really close in age or are scoring around the same amount. But for like science, art, history, those are combined subjects. That's what we do together as a family, as a whole. So when I said that I'm like pulling out these books, you know, at breakfast time when my kids are busy eating, they can't talk as much because they're chewing. And so I can read so much more to them and get so much more information into their brains. Plus they're doing a physical activity, you know, and they're still sitting, they're hungry, but they're listening at the same time. And so they're
I,
absorbing the information so much better.
I bet some of my teachers wished they could have shoved food down my throat when they were
You know,
teaching.
I do have one teacher that she allowed us, every time it was time for testing, she always allowed us to have gum just during the testing. And you know what? I think it helped. I really do. She believes
Yeah.
it did, so she handed out gum to everyone.
I was one of those kids that was definitely disrupting the class. Anywhere I'd be put, he originally thought, "Oh, let me move Ryan to the other side of the room, and he won't talk to people over there."
Yeah.
No, I talk to people wherever I was.
Right. Right.
Um, huh. So it sounds like it's a lot more feasible than most people think. And you can be so much more creative with your schedule than you
Mhm,
can with the public school system. Even
mhm.
like you don't have to even do it Monday through Friday. Like you could do it
Yeah.
like Saturday or
Yeah.
Sunday if you really wanted to. And
Absolutely.
just spend just the weekend. All right, we're gonna do
Mhm.
this, and
Yeah.
kind of tailor it around your schedule, which I think is really cool and something that I don't think a lot of people actually considers that they can tailor these things around them. And
Mhm.
two, you don't have to worry about summer vacations when you want to take a break. You
Yeah.
can go on
Yep.
vacation kind of anytime you want, which is pretty
Exactly.
cool.
Yeah, and I do have someone that's like, "Oh, are the kids on spring vacation or summer vacation?" And like the last 2 years, we have. It sounds terrible, and people are shocked, but when I tell them this, but we homeschool year round because, like you just said, we can take breaks where we need them. So, for instance, as soon as December rolls around, that whole month, we're taking off. We're just going to enjoy the entire season. I'll pull out curriculum. Like I used to do a Christmas curriculum, and we just dove in deep. We read all the Christmas books, watched all the Christmas movies, researched the candy cane and the Christmas tree and who's St. Nicholas. We researched everything Christmas. Where does the gingerbread man come from? Like it was just incredible. Awesome. And then in the summer, especially those really nice days like all of June pretty much. Oh, we're taking off. Unless it's raining. Then we'll like pull out some books and get some work done. Or if it's just too hot in the summer and it's like dangerously hot outside, we'll do some school then. But it's wonderful because my husband's schedule used to be all off the charts, just all over the place, and just some days he was off on a weekend, some days he wasn't, and so we would just go on through until he was off, and then we would take those 2 days and so that we could be with him.
Yeah, it just seems like such a more organic way to to educate our kids. And I think it's something too that I mean we gotta think about it. Like there are parents that have have done this long before we have. Like parents used to not send their kids to a public
Mhm.
school to be taught. They taught them themselves. So it's
Yeah.
really kind of just a return to kind of the old ways, and
Mhm.
making sure that we're raising our kids and
Mhm.
being the ones that are investing in them. And
Yeah.
I think kids will be better off in it. I
Mhm.
listened to a commentator named Matt Walsh, and he's a big proponent of homeschooling. And he said that we think it's normal when teenagers get into high school that they go through this phase where they hate their parents. He said that's not normal. Uh,
Wow. Wow.
that's not normal.
Wow.
What is happening that kids decide to revolt against their
Mhm.
parents when they're 13 and 14 years old,
Yeah.
and I thought, that
Mhm.
shouldn't be normal. Is that
Yeah.
something that they're picking up on social cues while they're in school, or
Yep.
that's causing them to act out in that way?
Right. Yeah.
And does homeschooling kind of break that mold, because
Yeah.
you're investing very heavily in their character from and if you start it early on,
Mhm.
the core of who a kid is being shaped from the time they're born to about
Yeah.
6 years old. That's
Yes.
when the core of who they are is being shaped.
Mhm.
I personally would love to be the primary influence in that
Mhm.
happening. So, like in the public school setting, like
Mhm.
we have kids rebelling against their parents, and and I think we're like robbed of the opportunity to kind of invest in them because it's happening in the public school system where the core of who they are
Mhm.
is being shaped. I would rather be the one doing the shaping. I would rather be the one that's the primary influence in their life, especially when they're younger. I personally want to be the one that's
Mhm.
uh, being the person who influences them and shapes their character. I think that's
Yes.
really important.
Okay, so I have an example of that. So my one friend that we do a co-op with also, she has older kids. They're like 10th and 11th grade. And I asked her, how was your relationship with them? I know the teenage years are difficult. And she said to me, which I was so surprised. She said, you wouldn't believe it, but when you invest in your children like that, they don't leave your side. Like, they just, for the most part, there's certain days and certain times, but for the most part, they just want to be with you. She's like, my teenagers talk to me more now than they've ever talked to me before. And sometimes I'm like, I need a break, guys. I need a break. And I just found that really inspiring, because I just, like you said, culture tells us this is normal. That's a normal thing. Just leave them alone. Just let them be in their rooms alone. They don't want you to bother them. And I do know, from my point of view, if you're homeschooling and you're working on your child's having a hard time with maybe a math problem or whatever, if it is hurting your relationship, you need to stop. You need to take a step back and figure out a different avenue, a different way. Take a break. At least in New York, there's nowhere that says you have to do math 5 days a week or 3 days a week. I know some people that just do math for the first 2 months, and then science for the next 2 months, and then history and then they can just really dive deep into that. But just take a step back and don't let it hurt your relationship. I mean, we find that even with doing homework with our children, they're frustrated. It's hurting your relationship with them. And you can't really stop that. You can't take a step back and be like, well, forget it. We don't have to do your homework. You still have to hand that in, so yeah, you can switch it up, change it up. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, that's really cool. That story is kind of I guess sums up kind of I guess my hypothesis that it's probably better for kids to be influenced by their parents than the public school system. So as we wrap things up here, Courtney, do you have any final thoughts, anything that you want to share before we close?
Yes, I do. If you have good grandparent or parents in your life, or in-laws, or close relatives, family, whoever, if they are good at something, or are just interested in something. So my dad, he does tree work. I can send my kids to him, and he's teaching them all different trees, all different ways of tying knots, all different motors, and what he put together and what he built and everything, and just pouring into them. And he loves them too, so it's a win-win there. But also, I wanted to read 2 small quotes before we
Yeah.
leave. And this is coming from, it's called The Gracious Space, and this is by Julie Bogart. And she has homeschooled, I think, 4 or 5. She has 4 or 5 kids, and they're all grown now. Anyway, she has a whole podcast and everything. You should check her out. She's excellent. I tell everyone to go to her first. But this is what her book says. It says, what I know about homeschooling families is that they are uniquely intimate. That's not to say there isn't intimacy in families with kids in public or private schools. Rather, home education creates a context where genius can thrive. Why? Because there are no other people on the planet who are as predisposed to recognize the particular genius of children as the parents of those same little people. And then I have just one more. And this one says, same book, our chief mission at home with our children is to discover and articulate their particular brilliances, and then to fiercely protect the space into which they cast their risky thoughts, so that they may take the tentative steps towards refining that genius, knowing they are emotionally supported and respected. That's my girl.
Parents know their kids,
They do.
And they know them better than anybody. So it only makes sense that, they would know what the best way to teach them, the best way to foster who they're going to be, and the best environment for them to learn.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Absolutely.
incredible. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Good.
Thank you for sharing, Courtney.
Sure,
I
you're
really
welcome.
appreciate you coming on the show. I'm sure my audience is going to glean a lot from this, and Again, guys, if you have any questions, Courtney is open to answering any of your questions. You can find her on Facebook at Courtney Books, and she'd be happy to, answer your questions or get you connected with resources to help you navigate this. There is a community of people homeschooling their kids, and, I think we need to definitely look into it, especially if we're on the fence. And I think we might be surprised at what we find.
Mm, yep,
Thanks so much,
absolutely.
Courtney.
Thank
All
you.
right, guys. Thank you guys for coming on the show today. God bless you guys. Deuces.